The Lord calls for a renewal of a straight testimony born in the years past. He calls for a renewal of a spiritual life. The spiritual energies of His people have long been torpid, but there is to be a resurrection from apparent death. Let not erroneous theories receive countenance from the people who ought to be standing firm on the platform of eternal truth. God calls upon us to hold firmly to the fundamental principles that are based upon unquestionable authority. The fundamental principles represented the public synopsis of Seventh-day Adventist faith. In the time when Ellen White issued a statement that we are to hold firmly to these fundamental principles, one particular doctrine was different from our currently held belief. The Lord calls us for renewal of a straight testimony born in the years past. He calls us to hold firmly to the fundamental principles which are based upon unquestionable authority. The fundamental principles were a public synopsis of Seventh-day Adventist faith in the time of Ellen White. It's something similar as we have today fundamental beliefs, but if you would compare the fundamental principles back in those days and our current fundamental beliefs, you would find one particular point, one particular doctrine that is different. It's not different in the wording or ways to express it, but it's completely different in their meaning and in its like teaching and the message we have had. My name is Michael and I'm one of the co-founder of Forgotten Pillar Project. And in these studies we are going to study this particular one point that has been changed, because now we have seen and we see a lot of these kind of promises and prophecies from Ellen White that God is calling us for renewal of a straight testimony born in the years past. And by that, Sister White is pointing to the fundamental principles. We would like to read this promise in the whole passage from the Testimonies for the Church, Volume 8, because God has attached a promise to the renewal of these principles and straight testimony we have borne in the years past, with a renewal of a spiritual life and impartation of the Holy Spirit. So let us read. The Lord calls for renewal of a straight testimony born in the years past. He calls for renewal of a spiritual life. The spiritual energies of His people have long been torpid, but there is to be a resurrection from apparent death. The spiritual energies of His people, that's God's people, that's you and me, He says, has long been torpid. And that's pretty good description of us. But then she says that there is a resurrection from apparent death. How is this going to happen? She continues. By prayer and confession of sin, we must clear the King's highway. As we do this, the power of the Spirit will come to us. We need the Pentecostal energy. This will come, for the Lord has promised to send His Spirit as the all-conquering power. Do you see that impartation of the Spirit of Christ, or Holy Spirit, is connected with the message we have to born in the years past? She's saying this more concrete. Perilous times are before us. Everyone who has a knowledge of the truth should awake and place himself, body, soul, and the spirit under the discipline of God. The enemy is on our track. We must be wide awake, on our guard against him. We must put on the whole armor of God. We must follow the direction given through this spirit of prophecy. We must love and obey the truth for this time. This will save us from accepting the strong delusions. God has spoken to us through His Word. He has spoken us through the testimonies to the church and through the books that have helped to make plain our present duty and the position that we should now occupy. That was in 1904. The warnings that have been given line upon line, precept upon precept, should be heeded. If we disregard them, what excuse can we offer? So, according to this text, what we should not disregard. So she says the truth for this time, and the writings of the spirit of prophecy. So what does Sister White means when she's writing in 1904 about the truth for this time? What is she referring to? This is what we read. I beseech those who are laboring for God not to accept the spurious for the genuine. Let not human reasons be placed where divine sanctifying truth should be. Christ is waiting to kindle faith and love in the hearts of his people. That is us. Let not erroneous theories receive countenance from the people who ought to be standing firm on the platform of eternal truth. God calls upon us to hold firmly to the fundamental principles that are based upon unquestionable authority. So the last sentence is like a conclusion from the whole passage she was writing about. So standing firm on the platform of eternal truth, loving and obeying the truth for this time, that was written in 1904, and reviving the straight testimony born in the years past, is to hold firmly to the fundamental principles. While doing this, by confession of sins and prayer, God has promised to give us Holy Spirit. There is to happen a revival of spiritual life in revival of the messages we have borne in the past. So what are these messages and what are these fundamental principles? What is the story behind them? We're going to look this in the next study. We're going to read the special testimonies, chapter 10, that is entitled The Foundation of Our Faith, where Sister White is talking about fundamental principles being the foundation of our faith. In this chapter, we're going to see the prophetic insight, how God has given us these fundamental principles, the foundation of our faith. We're going to see in the context of Kellogg how these fundamental principles will be regarded as error. And we're going to see that in the final last days, God is about to reestablish the straight testimony we have borne in the years past. See you in the next study. The truth will be criticized, scorned and derided, but the closer it is examined and tested, the brighter it will shine.